What happens when a man loses everything, and the law can no longer protect him? Tonight, we dive into a world where justice is drowned in blood, where loyalty is tested by betrayal, and where revenge becomes the only remaining truth. Without Remorse is not just a story about war. It's about what war leaves behind, scars that never heal, and a soldier who refuses to forget. When the system fails, when enemies hide in the shadows, one man rises, not as a hero, but as a weapon forged by loss. This is a journey through pain, rage, and cold determination. A path where mercy no longer exists, and survival demands sacrifice. Welcome to ESKC Movie 111. If you're ready to witness a story where vengeance has no limits, then stay with us, because this is Without Remorse. Imagine. You are a soldier, born and trained for one purpose only: to carry out orders and survive. But one day, war no longer takes place on the battlefield. War comes to your home. It comes to your family, and takes everything, without mercy. This is the story of John Kelly, an elite Navy SEAL, a shadow soldier, and a man who lost everything, then chose a path without mercy. John Kelly is no ordinary man. He is part of the most lethal unit in the United States. One day, he took part in a secret operation whose target was extremely valuable.
Confirmed, it's him.
And every decision had to be made in a matter of seconds. On a covert mission in Syria, John and his team rescued a mysterious hostage. A Russian man, who looked terrified, but held a great secret. At that time, the mission was successful. The enemies were quickly defeated. But unbeknownst to them, the decision made that night became the beginning of a nightmare that could not be stopped. Behind the weapons and blood, John Kelly was just an ordinary man when he returned home. He had a pregnant wife, hope, a future, something a soldier rarely has. For a moment, John believed his life would change, that war could be left behind, that he could become a father, no longer a killing machine. But the world wouldn't allow that to happen. That night was quiet, too quiet. Suddenly, John's front door was broken down. Armed men entered without warning. There was no negotiation. There was no chance. His wife was attacked. Shot. Left dying on the floor of her own home. John fought back, with the instincts of a soldier. He killed the attackers. But it was too late. His wife died. His unborn child went with her. And in that moment, John Kelly died as a husband, and was reborn as something far more dangerous. The revenge has begun. John, who was dying and lying in a hospital room, asked his boss about the child his wife was carrying. His boss could only respond with a shake of his head. John was overcome with grief. "Who's behind this?" John asked his boss again. And again, his boss could only respond with a shake of his head, and that was when sadness turned to anger. And anger became purpose. John began hunting. He then asked his boss to give him a name so he could track it down. However, at that time, his superior was unable to provide an answer. John searches one by one for the people involved in his family's murder. There is no trial. There is no law. Finally, John got a name from a meeting with his superiors. Then John sought justice in his own way. He kidnapped someone who was suspected of knowing the perpetrator of his wife's murder and interrogated him. He tried to evade and lie. But John's anger was burning, and once he refused to talk, bullets lodged in his body. But before revealing a name, the Russian man warned John, "Death will always follow you wherever you go." John was undaunted, and the Russian man died while giving him a name. After getting a name, John killed him with cold precision, got out of the car with his hands up, was arrested, and thrown into prison. In prison, he was visited by Thunder, his superior. John said, "I did what they told me to do, but why did they bring war to my home?"
I'm gonna play by my rules now.
With just a name, John was able to walk free from prison. It turned out that the Prime Minister also wanted that for the sake of his reputation in front of investigators.
Face the wall.
John had just told Thunder that he could be killed in this prison. Not long after, the prison officer spoke to John and ordered him to face the wall. John asked, "Why am I doing this?" But he received no answer. John instinctively walked quickly, preparing to fight. Shortly after that, an envoy from the Prime Minister arrived to pick up John Kelly.
Senior Chief Kelly.
John was then taken to a secret location. He was escorted by 3 cars. Upon arrival, John met with senior officials who asked him for the necessary information. After talking with them, John revealed a name, and his superiors showed him some photos. John then confirmed that he was the one who had killed his wife. The officials then decided that this man must be arrested and brought to trial. The next day, John and his team departed from the German airport for Russia. Upon arriving at the target's hiding place, John and his team quietly entered the building. However, halfway through the route, John locked the door and left Thunder and his team behind. He hoped John would be able to kill the man who murdered his wife. After meeting Victor, John discovered a terrible truth: that he and Victor were merely sacrifices to the cruelty of the world. They moved only on command.
Here to prevent you and me being.
Now the situation is getting more difficult. John has to deal with Victor, who is carrying explosives on his body. John tries to persuade Victor, but Victor remains firm in his stance. And finally, a huge explosion occurs. The explosion prompted the Russian police to arrive. John and his team realized that this was all just a trap to pit them against each other. At that moment, all they could think about was how to escape from the building and take out the sniper who was targeting them from outside. To foil the plans of the ruling elite, John has a plan. John will divert their attention and his team must leave, making sure no one is left behind so that their plan fails. John moves to the top of the building and creates chaos by shooting at the Russian police. John managed to kill the sniper and divert the Russian police's attention to the top of the building. He then returned to the building by jumping down and breaking the ventilation window. This led to contact with the Russian police who were guarding the building. John took out his last ammunition and bomb, which was wrapped in the bag he was carrying. He activated it and threw it at the police officers on guard, and it exploded. At that moment, John changed into a Russian army uniform and escaped from the building while his enemies were affected by the bomb. John hurriedly got into a car to follow his friends who had already escaped. With his body covered in wounds and half-conscious, John still drove his car. He arrived at his hideout and was greeted by Thunder, the leader of the operation team. After surviving yesterday's battle and completing their mission, John and his team returned to the United States aboard a Russian-flagged ship. John received an offer from his friend Keith. Namely, John had to die in yesterday's battle, never return, and disappear. And John accepted it while also asking Keith for forgiveness because he had been suspicious of him all along. And John realized that he was merely a pawn in an international conspiracy and just a game for the Prime Minister and the elite. The next day, one evening in Washington, the minister was enjoying his dinner. Then he went to the bathroom and met John, who was waiting for him without the minister knowing. John then kidnapped the Prime Minister, took him away in a black car, and sped down the highway. Inside the car, John forced the Prime Minister to answer his questions. With his hands handcuffed to the car, the Prime Minister explained that he did everything for America, where the Soviet Union was his goal. Imagine if we go to war, they will have to buy tanks, bullets, and missiles. Who will be lucky, said the Prime Minister? Obviously the economists and global elite, right? After hearing this confession, John and the Prime Minister jumped into a deep river. Finally, John understood the secret all this time. Why he and many other pawns had become victims. Even sacrifices for the rulers. As planned, John has been declared dead by the state, buried alongside his wife. Thunder saved his life, except for the minister, who is believed to have committed suicide by throwing himself into the river. Now the secret belongs to John, Thunder, and Keith. Keith has a new identity. Keith leaked the minister's voice recording, which led to his promotion. The conspiracy collapsed. The truth was revealed. Partially. But the world is never truly fair. Not everyone was punished. Not all sins were paid for. John finally disappeared. Officially dead. But living in the shadows. He changed his name. Erased his past. And built a new identity. His name now, John Clark. Without Remorse is not just an action film. It is a story about what happens when a soldier loses everything. About a broken system. About a war that was created. And about a man who was forced to become a monster because the world failed to protect those he loved. Because sometimes, when justice doesn't come, people create their own path. Without mercy, without forgiveness. Thank you for watching until the end. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. May you all be healthy and live long lives. See you in the next video.